All right, welcome back. I'm excited. Part two, everyone. Chris Petri here. Um, we're now into the next phase of our line and wash painting. If you haven't seen part one, please go back to part one. You'll get a lot out of that. We did the contour drawing first in pencil on our paper, and then now we're moving into the second phase, which is our ink. So we're going to do some line work with ink. I'm using Sumi ink here. So this is great. Once it dries, it will not smudge. So if you put watercolor paint over the top, it's not going to be an issue. So we'll just take a little, very careful with it, with ink. And you don't need a lot in your well. I use a small, it's almost like a cough medicine top dispenser off the top of a cough medicine jar. And I got them online. Very inexpensive, maybe, like maybe $5 and you can get like 10 or 20 of them. They're plastic. They're like measuring cups, basically, small measuring cups, plastic. And we have a couple bamboo pens. I got these at the local art store. Very inexpensive, actually. This was maybe like $5, the larger one, and this one was about the same, about $3 or $4, the smaller one. So this one has a larger point, which will dispense more ink, and this one has the finer tips, which will have less ink, so for more finer lines. And the beverage is optional. So I'm having a nice cup of coffee here as we work. And I would say, let me do the, we'll do the heavier lines first, and then we can do the finer lines with the smaller bamboo pen. So let's get right into it here. I'm working from a photograph of a painting out of a book. A famous artist. I'll let you guess who it is. And let's start off. Okay, so let's do the, and I already have the everything drawn in pencil. So now it's really kind of simple. I can really just cruise through this fast because I already have the so I'm dipping the pen into the ink, and I only have the the ink plastic ink well filled up only about half an inch, if that, so that when you dip your pen into it, it's not gonna take too much ink onto the pen. So you can kind of see that's about a 3/8 of an inch of ink that gets put onto the ink bamboo ink pen here. And I'm just gonna use maybe this larger pen the whole way through. And again, I'm choking up, I guess, going up higher on the bamboo pen, and then choking, or that was actually holding the bamboo pen back further, and then choking up is going closer up to the point. So now we're choking up on the bamboo pen, and we'll just continue. So now we're gonna get some of the, and again, we're not being really careful. We're kind of just doing this at a good pace, a quick pace. We're sometimes, quick is good. Sometimes, you have to practice different techniques, find out what you like. Um, Maybe certain art looks good when it's painted really slow and careful, and sometimes artwork looks good when it's done quickly. So that's all. You're the artist. You have to decide what you like as far as your style, what you like to paint, and how you like to paint. It's all up to you. So now, am I doing this? I just had to get that one there. So I'm trying to stay pretty close to the original here. Okay, and again, not too Okay, so these are really essentially these are the shadows that we're putting in now with the ink, and we'll put in darker watercolor paint too. But this is just a sort of, this ink is really just kind of giving us like a real advantage to deal with the real dark tonal values as we work here. Again, the light's coming from this direction over here, the right side, shining this way, so the shadows are going to be on the left side of the structures and the chimney pots and so forth. So and there's a, now with this type of work with the ink and line and wash, the ink and wash, you really have to let it dry after this process here that we're doing. So this would be one, you have to either keep a really close eye on it with some bright light on the paper to make sure before you go in and paint over top of this that everything is dry, because sometimes most of it will look dry, but there might be a few puddles left, and those few little puddles that are here and there, if you don't carefully inspect your paper with the ink on there first before you go in and do your wash over it, your watercolor wash, it could be disastrous. You'll have, I mean, it could look good in some cases. I've done some ink and washes where I let the ink sort of flow around, and so sometimes it works okay. Depends on what subject matter you have. But for this tutorial here, let's just say that for this style where we're looking for a nice realistic kind of look to our painting, we want to make sure we let it dry completely. And here, just again, quick, fast movements with our brush and some and over here I forgot to get that. So there's the this little shack over here has that nice shadow underneath, and then there's a lot of windows here, so let's do the windows, and they're mostly dark, the windows here, so let's just make sure we go in there with some nice dark ink. So certain spots you will see that the ink is kind of bubbling up, and there's a lot on the paper, so we'll definitely have to let this dry. So in the next video, part 3, I'll have made sure that this has dried completely, and that's something where I'll use a blow dryer to dry this off. And then we have another roof feature here, so let's do that again. Making the lines, breaking them up a little, making them look interesting. Like we wouldn't want to just make all straight lines here, like vertical lines and horizontal lines all perfectly straight. This looks really good. We do some nice waviness to things, and this is there's shadow over here, shadow over here, shadow over here. So you can let the pen dry off quite a bit, and just leave a little bit of ink on there, and then you can fill in your shadow areas. And then what that can do is that can help to just help you to remember where your shadows are going to go when you're painting. And you have your photograph, of course, that's or your picture that you're working from. That that's your guide basically. There's a shadow under that windowsill. That's all very dark on this side over here. These are very dark, the chimneys and chimney pots. And I'm just doing a couple of the lines to just remember what I have to do. Okay, we definitely have the feel for this now, for the really darkest darks in the picture. And you can imagine that all the darkest darks are really where you would always really see them, right? The light's coming from this side, so all the darkest darks are going to be like under the eaves, or the rake edges of the roofs. The this gable roof here, you can see it's underneath. There's an overhang, so you get that really dark shadow there. And then underneath the eaves here, those always get a dark shadow because they overhang the wall, the outside wall here of this house. We're going to call this a bed and breakfast maybe. And the windows tend to be dark usually, and so we made them dark. And then the tree trunks and the limbs and branches, and those tend to be very dark in a landscape scene. And so essentially we have our darks blocked in with our Sumi ink and our ink pen. And I have also chopsticks that I sometimes use for doing this. That gives you an interesting look. You can use chopsticks to draw with the ink. I have some here actually. So you can take the chopsticks and then trim the ends and make them, and you can get some interesting looks with the. You could use it just like the ink pen, the store-bought ink pen. These work great too, and you can kind of trim them all different sizes. You can make them really pointy, or you can make them wide like this. Like this one's pretty wide. You can get a really wide ink line, and then you can make them really super pointy. Okay, so let's come back. We'll start to do our watercolor washes over the top of this once it's completely 100% dry. That's the main thing of making sure that this is 100% completely dry before you go in with your washes. And then also too, what I tend to do is, if you can also pick up a little bit of ink with a tissue, so you can take a tissue and sort of be very careful, and then you can lift up some ink off the paper with a tissue, being very careful. If you find you have puddles on your paper and you really don't want to use a blow dryer, you can pick up some ink with the tissue. Just make it into like a little bit of a point, like that, a nice point, and then okay, we'll be right back and we'll start our watercolor washes over the top of our line.